Today our guest is Dr. Ed Lopez, who's a professor of economics and the BB&T Distinguished Professor of Capitalism at Western Carolina University. Dr. Lopez, welcome to our program.
Hi, Derek. Thanks.
Glad you can be here. So your talk is about political change, and I think most people have this notion that political change comes from the top down. Could you explain if that's true or if it comes from some other place?
Well, and the bottom line answer is, in the talk that I'll be presenting today, policymakers, I think, is more useful, or it's equally useful to think of them as policy reactors. In other words, the decisions that they make have been predetermined by the flow of ideas in society, by the flow of current events in society, by the preferences that voters have, by what's happening with household finances and so forth. Politicians and policymakers have to react to those conditions. And the theme of my talk is that how ordinary people live their daily lives, and respond to changing circumstances, and the ideas in particular, the ideas that ordinary people focus on and communicate with each other, those types of that type of participation out in society by ordinary people from the bottom up puts pressure on the political system, puts pressure on policy reactors. And so whereas it's often very easy to sort of think about, well, an idea or a decision gets made by a central authority or by a high-ranking figure, and then that decision sort of gets impacted on society more broadly. The talk I'll give today emphasizes the more bottom-up, coming out from the broad reaches of society up through to the leaders, and they react to what's being called for in society.
So basically, the people at the top of the pyramid, the people I guess most people think of as having authority, are really reactionary to the people at the bottom and respond to those folks.
Pyramid's a good analogy, a good way to sort of think about it, and I think that's I think that what I'm trying to offer today is this bottom-up influence. Yeah.
So how do we influence, or how do we affect the bottom then? I guess that's a target that most people don't think about. How do you influence them? Well,
a big emphasis in the way I approach this problem is the power of ideas. And every person, individuals, ordinary folks, entrepreneurs, innovators, we all have ideas. And we all share ideas with each other. We share ideas just in ordinary conversation. We share ideas when we go to work and talk about the issues of the day. We share ideas when we come up with a new process or a new product or a new app on our phones and so forth. It serves a purpose. It's helpful to think about those as people participating in the flow of ideas. And it's through this flow of ideas that ultimately has this sort of bubbling up effect and ultimately provides the reasons for policymakers making the decisions that they do.
So policymakers respond to the people who make decisions, and then they're influenced by these ideas. So you're an academic, I'm an academic. Where do we fall into all of this?
Okay, good. Yeah, so, academics are ordinary people too. So there's that element, the example that we set, how we communicate with our peers, the members of our community, right down to our family members and so forth. That ultimately matters because that's contributing to the flow of ideas in society. But also, academics tend to be thought leaders. And as thought leaders, we can have a greater than proportionate influence in the flow of ideas. So, for example, if you publish a book, or if you write a series of articles that get published in professional journals and so forth, that influences ideas in a more concrete and possibly even more concentrated way. A lot of public policy changes have their origins in some the sort of academic scribblers of a few years back.
Okay, so we help generate the ideas. Who actually goes down and then I guess gets it to the people who debate them and talk about them? How do we get that sort of, groundswell of people who are interested in X or Y?
That's a good question, because I think that if you go around to different places in the country and you talk to somebody on Main Street, or you join some a family at their kitchen table, those folks aren't reading the professional journals in economics or in history or whatever, but nonetheless they're somehow connected to what's happening in that professional communication. If you think about this in a society where the flow of ideas is robust, there's a whole class of professions and activities and people that serve the purpose of translating and distilling and communicating more broadly the ideas that happen among sort of concentrated groups of people like academics. I call this group of people the intellectual class, and what the word intellectuals means, which I get from F.A. Hayek, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, is think about the word intellectual as a middleman of ideas. And what they do is they're versatile with ideas on a professional sort of abstract level, but their real skill is in communicating ideas more broadly so that they're acceptable and that mass audiences can identify with them. So examples of this would be newspaper columnists. Examples of this would be in the modern age, television and internet personalities who focus on current affairs. You might find it surprising to talk about, say, Jon Stewart or, say, Stephen Colbert as being described with the word intellectuals, but in this sense they are. They're middlemen of ideas that help diffuse ideas throughout society, and so that those ideas can have this bubbling up effect on policymakers ultimately.
Great. If there's sort of one idea or one concept you want to leave our viewers with, what would that be?
I think that politics is equally as bottom up as it is top down.
Excellent. Well, our guest has been Dr. Edward Lopez from Western Carolina University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.